What is up, Renegades? Welcome to the Heroscape Designer Roundtable. My name is Anais. I'm the product development specialist here at Renegade, and I'm joined today by two of the brilliant minds behind Heroscape. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Alex Davey. I'm one of the developers here at Renegade, working on Heroscape.
And I'm Dylan Fernandez, and I'm the other designer developer working on Heroscape.
Sweet. And I'm really excited to talk to you both about Heroscape and some of the stuff we revealed today. And we have this list of questions here, so let's just jump on into it.
Sure.
First off, what is your favorite sculpt from today's reveals? Starting with Dylan.
Okay. Man, I've got a couple options here. I feel like Elin Fufo is one of the most Heroscape looking sculpts I've ever seen. It's got such great table presence. It's bulky, but fills the peanut base really well. So I think they're great. Most improved has to go to Sudema. What a glow up from whatever was going on with their 1.0 sculpt with the kickstand scabbard. The huge improvement. Love the new Sudema. So those are probably my top two. Honorable mention to Gimbal because Gimbal's incredible. I'll cut it off there.
I've got to give it to Kaiga Takanawa, I think, because I'm just a sucker for samurai. It's really that simple. He's got a rad sword. He's got a sweet samurai face mask,
First
and he's
mounted
on a
samurai.
horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. There haven't been a ton of mounted units in Heroscape in general, so it's nice to have a classic historical mounted samurai in the mix, albeit one with a an ancient cursed sword and some funky powers. But
Who doesn't love an
um,
ancient cursed sword?
who doesn't? Who
Sure.
doesn't really?
You have to.
Sometimes
You
the
can't put
person
it down if
holding
you
the
want.
sword is not a fan of it, but in terms of sculpt, yeah, that's gonna have to be my answer. There's so many good ones though. I mean, Gimbal's great. I really love the little Ice Expedition guys. They came right off of the page of some old Avalon Hill concept art, and we looked at that, page of sketches, and we were like, we got to make these little guys. They're so cool. So that's always fun to do. But yeah, I'll stick with the samurai.
Nice. So my next question, multi-class army cards are new to HeroScape. I would love to hear about the design philosophy behind that choice, from either of you.
Sure, I can tackle that one. It was sort of a logical next step, I think, for a lot of these designs. We started cooking up these characters, and I think the first one that really felt like an obvious multi-class character was Nishi Suda, because Nishi Suda is just an Edo period samurai cop. So that, he's both a samurai and a lawman. So putting those two keywords together just makes a lot of sense. So we kind of springboarded from there. And from a gameplay perspective, it gives you a lot of really, obvious ways to bridge the gap between different synergies. I mean, there's samurai synergies, there's lawman synergies, and with Nishi kind of in the middle as a linchpin, you can bring some of those synergies together. So there's a number of characters in this batch of content that sort of naturally lend themselves to having this kind of multi-class status, and it's just another design tool. It's kind of just a natural extension of existing synergy webs, and it's just kind of fun when you have something like a samurai cop in the game, to give them both of those classes and both of those synergy webs.
It is fun and it's super creative too. So it looks like we're getting a few new historical units in this wave. Can you talk about the return of historical units? I'll toss this over to Dylan.
Sure. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Historicals are one of what we consider the three pillars of Heroscape. When I first got into the game, that appeal of you've got uh wizards fighting robots fighting Romans was like one of those cool aspects of the game where it's like, yeah, this
Totally.
is truly the battle of all time and space. And the relaunch didn't have any historicals for a number of reasons, and it took a while to start making new historicals and get those through all the necessary processes. But they're back which is so exciting. And we've got, touching on some of those classic historical archetypes that have been part of Heroscape for a while. So we've got samurai, we've got lawman, we've got a new knight in Jeanne d'Arc, which is a great way to like step back into that historical time period and in fun, new Heroscapey ways. Sometimes the historicals can have a touch of something from Valhalla or a touch of something a little more fantastical, but usually more grounded in aesthetic and that like true Earth feel. And that's just really exciting to get back to. And this is not all of it. This is not where we're ending. We want to start filtering in more historicals as we continue on, and not just from aspects of Earth's history that we've already touched on in Heroscape in the past. We want to open it up to new historical areas,
Interesting.
new land masses, new areas, and you might start seeing one of those new areas this fall, perhaps.
Secrets, secrets,
Yeah,
secrets. So
maybe Secrets of the Citadel, perhaps.
stay tuned. Yeah, this is going to be really exciting for all of the history buff hero-scapers of the world, and it's great to see them back in the game. What was a tricky unit to design that eventually clicked and ended up as the army card we see today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the hardest things to design this time around was the battle box, because the battle box is it's one of those products that needs to do a lot of different things. It needs to serve as an entry point for players. It needs to be a pretty good self-contained experience for new players and for experienced players alike. So you should be able to open up that box and pit the six different heroes against one another, and have that be fun and engaging and interesting. But also not be totally overwhelming and be suitable for new players. So there's a lot of levers that you're kind of trying to pull, because the other aspect of balancing those figures is that they need to exist within broader synergy webs for Heroscape as well. So like Sudama is a really good example. Like we needed to make sure that she was balanced for the battle box, but also she's going to be a linchpin figure in undead army builds. She's uh, a queen and a boss of undead builds. So what we ended up doing in that respect is both Sudema and Nishi Suda and to some extent Kanak, they all work perfectly well as individual heroes, and they work within the synergy webs of the battle box, but they also end up being linchpins for these full armies. So once you expand beyond the battle box, there's like some natural ways that you can build up your forces. So if you really like Sudema's vibes, you can pick up a couple of other undead focused products and build towards that 500 point tournament army pretty naturally. But you're not being overwhelmed by all of that content when you're just playing the battle box. So to go back to your question, I think I would say Sudema and Nishi Suda were probably the ones that were trickiest to get right, because we were trying that we needed them to do a lot of different things all at
Yeah.
once and to excel at every role. So that took a little while to dial in.
Yeah. Nishi's one of the more obvious ones there in terms of how it ended up as well, where you've got one power on that card with the samurai bonding that doesn't apply in the battle box, but gives people this idea of, oh, okay, there's a wider synergy web here. If I go pick up a product with a samurai in it, I'll be able to expand this build. But while I'm playing in the battle box, I can just ignore that and it's a simpler card because of it. And so that's the kind of trade-off in that character where they're built for the wider Heroscape game, but can be played in that battle box in a more contained manner.
Yeah, I love that. It's a lot of options, lots of
Mm.
replayability. It sounds quite versatile.
That's the idea, I guess. Yeah.
Uh, so my next question is it easier or harder to design game-changing things that are not characters, such as glyphs, terrain, and destructible objects?
That's interesting. It's sort of a double-edged thing because in some cases when you're designing a glyph or a terrain or a destructible object or something, you have a little more freedom to it because all characters we put out need to be so like perfectly balanced to themselves, to each other, to their point value, to the greater Heroscape meta. But with glyphs, you can kind of throw some stuff out there that might be a little crazy that would never see a competitive play, but would be great for like your scenarios or your kitchen table game or something to just make the game more interesting. So with glyphs, you can kind of swing for the fences and try and like throw out some really interesting stuff. There's one that I think is not coming out till the spring now that is a real swing for the fences, but that one is gonna be a blast and will never be in a tournament with any amount of seriousness. But sometimes we want to make things that are like actually, even with glyphs, designed for that competitive element. So like Glyph of Zigvald, which is move plus one, that's something that I've felt the tournament scene has needed for a while. Because there's the move plus two glyph, which is generally just past that border of too strong for most competitive metas, but a move plus one dials that back while still being something that you would want to try and control. So sometimes with glyphs, you can try and go more for that competitive balance and go play test it a little more thoroughly as well, because it's going to be more for that competitive scene. But sometimes with glyphs, you can kind of go wild. With terrain, a lot of times it's going to lean a little more toward I want this to be used in more competitive settings because people want to build cool maps. We want cool
Hmm.
maps in our map pool, and so we want them to be able to be used for that sense. And so with the Shroud Shrooms, those were designed to have an effect that could be desirable in a competitive map, in this case, turning off line of sight, which is big because range has a lot of advantages, and so trying to deny those is important, but they were designed in such a way that if you play with the full set of Shroud Shrooms with the ancient, mature, and young Shroud Shrooms, you can do the cool, you destroy one, you pop up another thing. But I reckon some competitive maps will probably just start with young Shroud Shrooms on the battlefield and say you destroy them, they're gone, and play it a little more conservatively. So another aspect of where you can balance how those works. Now, if someone wants to make a nice balanced competitive map with ancient Shroud
That'd be
Shrooms,
sick.
I want to play it. That sounds awesome. But we try and, cater to both sides of that design because, most people who play Heroscape are playing it at home or at the game store, just like building a cool big map and throwing some armies at each other. And, we want it to look awesome and play awesome. So definitely a balance of both. And destructible objects are back. I think this is our first destructible object in
Mhm.
contemporary Heroscape. So that was a fun thing to do, and they look incredible. The fact that they glow
Yeah.
a different color from the color that they are still breaks my brain a little bit.
Yeah. When you said look awesome and play awesome, I like that could be the slogan for Heroscape.
Look awesome, play awesome. That's
That's
if I ever make
that's
a fashion
maybe
line out
the
of this shirt.
yeah,
Uh,
the ethos. Uh
It's honestly kind of amazing we haven't had glow in the dark in Heroscape yet, prior to this, because it just feels like such a natural fit for a game
the
like this.
the toxic terrain glows, right? I think the toxic terrain
That's
is
true.
also
Yeah, the toxic terrain
yeah.
too. But yeah,
So
prior
this
to the kind of
year,
the recent batch of stuff, and it's been really cool to just make new terrain. I think both the shred shrooms and the toxic terrain lend themselves to some new, new map building ideas and just new play styles. So it helps keep things, keeps things fresh. Because the prior to that, all of the terrain in the game had been around for a very long time. So we're finally starting to see some brand new stuff, and I personally can't wait to see what the community does with map building with toxic tiles and shroud shrooms.
yeah, I'm
yeah.
excited. And for all you watching, make sure to join the Discord and you can show us pictures of your maps and your game night photos because all of us do look at them and we enjoy them and we feature them in the newsletter sometimes. So if you haven't already joined the Discord, join the Discord. Um, but yeah, so for my next question, seeing concepts and wish list suggestions from the community coming to life is great. How does it feel to be able to deliver that? Is there anything you can say about more dreams or wishes coming true?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a blast, like bringing the figure formerly known as Cthulhu Daddy, now known as Eel and Fufua to life. I mean, that was such an obvious move. It's such a cool piece of concept art. And we're lucky enough to be working on a game that has, decades worth of, history and lore and fandom stuff and um we also have access to like all of the really interesting and cool Avalon Hill concept art.
Hmm.
And obviously some of the factions have gone in a different direction since those days that the initial concept art doesn't exactly match everything that we're doing now. But there's still plenty of just awesome stuff in there. I mean, we pulled the Ice and Expedition characters right out of those Vorid concept sketches. There's even some characters that are in the pipeline that haven't been revealed yet that we pulled from that kind of thing. So it's just great. It feels like a continuation, and it feels really fun to be able to produce something that was just an idea from years ago and may never have made it into the game as an official sculpt and army card. It feels great to be able to do that and to be able to like kind of grab the best of that and put it into the game.
Mhm.
A major part of Heroscape is its callouts and homages to other things. So, what are some tropes from pop culture or literature that inspired unit designs in this wave?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, when we're working on Heroscape characters and new ideas, we're never really referencing anything specific, but we are pulling from these kind of ideas that are just in the sort of collective consciousness of nerds and pop culture and literature and stuff like that. So, the idea of a cursed sword, there's a lot of
Hmm.
different iterations on that. And sort of just pairing that with like a sort of traditional samurai story is kind of where Kaiga came from. Gimbal is just sort of an obvious riff on the sort of super genius inventor creates, robot suit to fight, either crime or in this case, fight for Volarak and her ambitions. Um, stuff like when I saw the Ice and Expedition figures in the concept art, I was like, these look like 19th century British gentleman adventurers, or I guess gentle Vorid adventurers. So Heroescape is it's a big stew full of all kinds of fun ideas, and you just kind of pluck these interesting ideas out of the air and kind of tweak them to fit in with the world of Heroescape and to fit in with the Valkyrie generals and the storyline that's going on. So it kind of just comes from all over, and it's kind of hard to say like which exact thing inspired something. But yeah,
The
we get
other
inspiration everywhere.
the other real big one this wave is Kanak, as a
Mm-hmm.
representative of the hard-boiled detective fiction
Oh,
tropes,
yeah.
which I've always been a big fan of. I was a film noir guy. I love that kind of uh, like really deep dive on that sort of thing, and that's why Kanak is the one to narrate the scenario book as well to give it that hard-boiled detective fiction vibe. So that's another one that was something that Heroscape didn't really have,
Mm-hmm.
but is now a big part of it.
Well, it's fun to kind of smash these tropes together too, because like in the battle box alone, you've got three, law officers from incredibly different
Yes.
worlds and genres. And I mean you've got an Edo period traditional samurai police officer. You've got, Blink Dawson, who's like kind of a Billy the Kid, fastest gun in the West kind of trope. And then you've got a blue-skinned orc from a different world with a steampunk noir vibe. So that to me, like these are all law officers and they're all working together. But that is a very Heroscape set of tropes and ideas, and I think that's super
Mhm.
fun.
Oh, and
Totally.
Kanak's name is a reference to James M. Cain, one of the pioneers
Mm,
of hard-boiled detective fiction.
Well,
He
there's
but
a
wrote
grut
cool
but
fun
Underground
grutified
fact.
Fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah.
with a little grut twist.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. So, to what degree does the lore influence game design? And I guess vice versa.
I mean, I've been a fan of the Heroscape lore for the whole run of it. It's always been such an interesting way to tie these vastly different characters together. And there's a lot more Heroscape lore than you would think looking in from outside. Like even back in the day, there was the Thorman's Journals, there was various scenarios even then. There was the cartoon commercial which was like from the original launch of the game. There was this animated commercial for Heroscape, and it had Sergeant Drake and Agent Carr and all the usuals. And it had some funky background characters that always made me go, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And one of the ones that really stuck with me is they show the scene of Drake being summoned to Jandar's summoning chamber, and there's a few people there already. There's some Vikings who were in the master set with Drake. And then there was this fish guy who was like kind of in the background but had a pretty prominent spot. And I was always like, who is that? He was there with Jandar before he even summoned Drake. So he's like tight with Jandar. Who is this? That's Chris Galligan. So we finally were came up with the idea of like we need to fill in this piece of lore. I've wanted to know who this is for 20 years. Let's make him. And now we did, and I love Frizzed. He's our great sniper in the box, and he, can do some really interesting things, and we tied him in with the sort of Jandar lore in general of giving him armor made by Omnicrons. So it's really get to build in on that flavor. And then other times the lore will come from the game design and the mechanics that we're building. And that's in some ways going to be more of it, where we'll design a character that has a cool gameplay idea that'll fit a certain trope, and then we'll flesh out their biography and their lore to really fill in how that gets to be where it is and why they do the things they do. So for the most part, the game design will be inspired by the lore and then will heavily influence the lore. Sometimes more inspired by the lore than not. And Frizzed will not be the last background character from that commercial that we will see in the game because I really like it.
You heard it here first, folks. What else can you tell us about the storyline?
That's a good question. What am I allowed to tell? Well, I can kind of set the stage a little bit just in terms of our overall kind of ambitions for the story at this point, if nothing else, because at this juncture, the big bad in the lore has been defeated. We'll see how long that lasts, but for now, Utgar is out of the picture. And without this kind of unifying threat, the other Valkyries, that alliance was always pretty fragile. It was always more about like we need to stop Utgar. That has now splintered into these smaller groupings of generals with either, aligned interests, aligned philosophies, and or just geographical allies, if nothing else. So what we're going to get to see over the course of this storyline is what do those new alliances look like? How do they shift the balance of power on Valhalla? And the kind of accelerant to all of this conniving, because there's a period of relative peace at the beginning of this storyline, but that can't last for long. Obviously, this is the battle of all time. It's not going to just,
Sure.
be a kumbaya period.
It'd be kind of a
So
weird game.
it would, yeah,
I
yeah.
just make my Heroscape figures kiss and hold hands.
You can do
Exactly. I
that.
mean,
That's
that would be a
valid.
direction. That would be a direction we could go. Uh, but I think the other big story beat is there's a whole forgotten, lost like Atlantis style civilization below Valhalla from a precursor era. And this we're going to learn more about the well springs, where they came from, how they were used. Because when the Valkyrie generals discover them, they're old, they're ancient technology, they're ancient magic. We don't know a lot about how they came to be, how the chambers came to be, what this precursor civilization was like, what secrets and treasures and powers exist under the surface of Valhalla. And so as the Valkyrie generals, struggle for power and to, get access to this technology, we're going to learn a lot more about it, and it's going to influence the storyline, the fights that are going to occur, and there's going to be just a lot of really fun new lore that's going to be literally dredged up by these people who are exploring the caverns and cities and like lost corridors beneath the surface of the planet.
Sweet. And then I have one last question for you both before we wrap things up. So, two of the alliances are represented in full force in this story arc. Can we expect the other two to get the spotlight as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got the New Alliance and the Clockwork Combine both having some standout packs in here that really like launched this era. But the Umbral Covenant and the Verdant Pact are getting their time in the sun. Believe in the spring is when they're going to get a really big push. There'll be some in the fall, but the spring is when they get their big standout packs like New Alliance and Clockwork Combine had. And honestly, some of these things coming out for those packs are some of my favorite things that we've worked on. I know I say that every time we tease something, but there are some in there that we've been working on for a while because we designed all of these like intro packs at around the same time and then got distributed over a wider timeline for release. And so there's some things that we've been sitting on for so long that have been my favorites for a long time that I cannot wait for y'all to see. But that'll be a little while now, but I'm stoked.
Well, then we can look forward to it. Thank you both for joining us today to talk about Heroscape. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And thank you, Heroscapers, for tuning into the Heroscape Designer Roundtable this Renegade Con. Make sure to check out the rest of the programs we have available throughout the day. We're streaming. So, and if you haven't already checked out what we revealed earlier, make sure to head over to our web store and you'll be able to see everything. And thank you all for watching. Have a good one. Bye.